Okay, so we are starting the new topic from our book 4, that is valuations and risk model, and the first topic is the measures of financial risk. Now this topic is first of all very easy, and it includes some basic concepts, and out of those basic concepts some of the concept you will find out that you have previously studied. Okay, so this chapter will be quick, and wherever needed we'll stop and we'll discuss the topic. So here we have majorly 5 topics to cover up. So first of all, let us create the mind map so that it will be easy for us to understand what is there in the topic. So first of all, let us understand the basic theme of the topic. If you can look at the name of the topic, it is about measures of financial risk. Means now what my task is to measure the risk. Okay, whatever risk is there, I can measure it. Now can you measure the risk with 100% accuracy? No, it is not possible that you will be able to measure the risk with 100% accuracy. Yes, but you can estimate the risk. You cannot be 100% sure with the amount of risk is there. Clear? Now we are using different tools to measure the risk. We are using the different tools to measure the risk. Now out of all the tools, one of the tools or one of the method we have previously studied about the risk, that is the standard deviation. Clear? And that portion we have completed in our book 1 topic CAPM, where we have studied about higher the risk, higher the return, higher the risk, higher the return. We are discussing about the portfolio's expected return, that is mean, and the risk, that is standard deviation. We are talking about the mean, and we are talking about the sigma, that is standard deviation. So this is one of the method of measuring the risk. Apart from this, we have another method, that is value at risk. We have expected shortfall. This is the another method of valuing the risk. Clear? Now coherent risk measure, this is not actually a method. Okay, this is a tool to measure the risk. This is also a tool to measure the risk. Clear? But this is actually the properties. This is actually the properties of a good risk measuring model. Means if I'm using the war, I need to check it whether it is following all the properties of being a good risk measuring tool or not. And if it is not, means it is not following the coherent risk measure properties. Again, I will check the expected shortfall, whether it is following all the properties of being a good risk measuring tools or not. If it is, then we can say that yes, it is a coherent risk measure. What is the meaning of the word coherent? So better that you will note down the meaning of coherent is logical and consistent. Logical and consistent. So means we want a risk measure which is logical as well as consistent. Now how you will find out that particular model is consistent as well as logical? For which there are 4 properties, and if our model is following those 4 properties, then we can say it is coherent risk measure, otherwise it is not. Clear? And the last one is the spectral risk measure, that we'll discuss at the end. Clear? So I'm not going to dig inside this mean variance framework because we have already covered this section. So let us just take down few important points from this mean variance framework section, and then we will over this part. Now the first point is the return follows elliptical distribution, or the most commonly used elliptical distribution is the normal distribution. Now let us take this point forward, how my normal distribution looks like. Okay, this is my normal distribution, where here I have my mean, that is mu. Clear? And this is the 1 standard deviation, this is the 2 standard deviation, and this will cover approximately 67% of the data, and this will cover approximately 95% of the data. But see, when we are doing the mean variance framework, we are concerned only and only about the mean and standard deviation. We are concerned only about the mean and the standard deviation. Clear? Now this can be towards the right, or this can be towards the left. This can be towards the right, and this can be towards the left. Now If suppose the mean return is 4%, mean return is 4%, and when it is going towards the left, suppose the return become minus 1%, and if it will go more into the tails, it will become minus 7%. If it is going towards the right, it is becoming 8%, and it is becoming say 14%. Clear? Now try to think when we are taking the normal distribution, when we are using the mean variance framework, we are considering both side of the distribution, both profit as well as loss. This side is your profit side and this side is your loss side. Now what our topic is? Our topic is to measure the financial risk. So do you think that right side, do we have any risk? So this side we don't have any risk, no risk. Clear? But towards the left we have lots of risk. Clear? So our VAR and expected shortfall means we have one method to measure the risk, that is mean and variance, but it is actually concerned about both profit and loss. But now we need to shift our mind. We need to shift our mind from profit towards the loss only. So now we want to model only losses. We are not concerned about profit. We are not concerned about profit. So one of the major thing which is about the book 4, that you will never think of about the profit, means there is no profitability, you need to remember. Okay, suppose there are two departments. Okay, one department is concerned of the profitability, that they need to have the profit of 10% every year, and there is one department who is concerned about the loss, who is concerned about the risk. So the one who is concerned about the profit will look for expected return, as well as he will look for the standard deviation. But the one who is concerned about the losses, he will not even think about the profit, because profit is the headache of this person, and he will not think about the losses because losses is the headache of this person. So you can see that towards the left side, this is my mean, towards the left side is the headache of this department, and towards the right of the mean is the headache of this department. So mean variance, you see, we always use the word expected return and standard deviation. Clear? But in this section, in this department, you will never hear the word of expected return. You will always think about the possible losses and how you can minimize the possible losses. They will always think in terms of losses. Clear? So I have just given you the brief idea that why we need different measure, because mean variance is actually not satisfying my needs to measure the risk. Clear? So in order to measure the risk, I have identified different models: VAR model, expected shortfall model, and there are many other models, but what our concern is VAR and expected shortfall. Clear? So write down point number 4. We are not concerned about returns. We are not concerned about returns. We want to model our losses. We want to model our losses which are in left tail. Clear? How they are in the left tails? You are arranging all your losses from left to right. Means here it will be negative 17%, then negative 16%, negative 15%, negative 14.5%, negative 12%. Okay, so and so, 0%, plus 1%, plus 2%, like this. So means you are arranging all your returns from left to right. You are arranging all your returns from left to right. So what you are concerned about? You are concerned about these returns. So now if my returns are following, normal distribution, I can use standard deviation. Means here is my, suppose standard deviation is 3%, here my standard deviation is 3%. Now tell me, what do you understand by the term 3% standard deviation? Do you think that standard deviation will be 3% only, or it can be more than 3%, or it can be less than 3%? Definitely it can be more than 3%, or it can be less than 3%. Clear? Standard deviation, this is just the average standard deviation, this is just the average standard deviation. Just like my mean is 4%, just like my mean is 4%. So if suppose I will give you one example, Facebook mean return is 4%. So do you think that next year it will give you 4% return? No, it can give you 5% as well, or it can give you 2.5% as well. Clear? So means this is just an average return. In reality it can be anything. So just like the standard deviation of Facebook is 3%, it can be next year 4%, or it can be 2%. It can be 4% or it can be 2%, depending upon the market situation. Clear? Now I need to find out what will be the standard deviation this year. So this year standard deviation will be average standard deviation multiplied with some probability, or multiplied with some multiplier which can increase the standard deviation or which can decrease the standard deviation, which can increase the standard deviation or which can decrease the standard deviation. Now if I am multiplying it by 1, try to understand what I am saying. If I am multiplying it by 1, my standard deviation is going to remain at 3. If I am going to multiply it 0.5, my standard deviation will become 1.5. If I will multiply it with 2, my standard deviation will become 6%. So means here I can adjust my standard deviation. Now suppose I am doing like this, 1.65 multiplied with 3%. Clear? This is your multiplier, this is your standard deviation. Now what is the standard deviation you are expecting this year? 4.95%. Clear? Now might be you got to guess that you have seen this something earlier. Yes, you have seen this earlier. This is nothing but the Z value for 95%. Clear? So means you are 95% sure that your Z value will be close to this. Or it can be like this, 1.96 multiply with 3%. 1.96 multiply with 3% is equals to 5.88. So means now can you say this is also your Z value for 97.5% probability. Now you are 97.5% sure that your standard deviation will be close to 5.88. Or there is another value, 2.33 multiply with 3%. How much it is? This is going to be 6.99%. Now this is also the Z value. For 99%. So means now you are saying that with 99% probability your Z can be this, because you cannot expect that Z to remain at 3. It can change. Clear? So it can be 4.95, it can be 5.88, it can be 6.99, or it can be some other value, depending upon what you are assuming. Clear? Now what is my mean return? My mean return is 4%. And if the volatility of return is 4.95, if the volatility of the return is 4.95, means can you say that you are having the loss of 0.95%? 0.95% at 95% confidence level. Okay, if you are at 97.5, can you say that your loss will be 1.88%, because this is your mean, this is your return, but your return can move towards the left by 5.88 as well as towards the right by 5.88. Try to understand. This is your mean of 4%. This is your mean of 4%. Now with 97.5% probability, it can go towards the right, means the standard deviation can go in your favor as well as you're against. But what you are concerned about, you are concerned about the losses. So when you are concerned about the losses, it actually goes towards the left. It actually goes towards the left. So how much it will be? 4 minus 5.88. So you are standing at this level. You are standing at this level. Otherwise your return would have been 9.88%. Now they both are possible. They both are possible at 97.5%. This is also possible. This is also possible. Clear? But this is the concern of profit department. This is the concern of loss, or you can say risk department, because the risk lies towards the left. The risk lies towards the left. Clear? So means you are not 100% sure, first of all, about the risk, about the losses. How come? Because you are using the probability. Because you are using the probability. Now you want to be more sure. Now you want to be more sure. You are using the 99%. You are using 99%, that is 6.99. 6.99, that is, here it will become minus 10.99. Here it will become minus 10.99. Hopefully you are understanding. Sorry, it will be 2.99 minus 2.99. How come? 4 minus 6.99%. Clear? And here it will be 10.99%. Clear? Now they both are possible at 99% confidence. They both are possible at 99% confidence. Clear? But the loss risk department are concerned about the tails. Clear? So this is the difference between the mean variance framework and the VAR and expected shortfall. So this side we have mean variance framework, and this side we have actually VAR and expected shortfall. Clear? Now I haven't discussed till now. I have just given you the picturization that we need to first of all bridge the gap between that book 1 and book 4, that how we are coming from book 1 to book 4. Then only we can start our portion of book 4. So till now in the mean variance framework we have covered 4 points. Let us come to 5th point. Now 5th point is about the limitations. 5th point is about the limitations of mean variance framework. Now whenever I am saying about limitation about the model, it actually the assumption which we are taking inside the model. Okay, assumption make the model weak. Okay, though we are using the assumption to make our model simpler, but these assumption will actually make the predicting ability of the model weak. Suppose if I'll give you an example, okay, not concerned about this mean variance framework, just the general. You're considering that the risk free rate is constant, or you're considering the volatility is constant. Okay, such kind of hypothetical assumption are really weird and they never happen in real life. Okay, so if something which is not possible in real life, and most importantly if I talk about the volatility which is changing every second, so how can you say that volatility is constant? Because it's actually changing. So these assumptions will make our model weak, and this is actually the limitations. So I'm not giving the write-ups of the assumption or the limitations of mean variance framework, because we have already covered that in a very detailed when we will be doing our book 1. Okay, just like if you can remember that everyone is assuming the same return, everyone is assuming the same correlation, everyone is assuming the same standard deviation. Clear? So means every investor is assuming the same. That's why everyone is having the same efficient frontier. Now let us take one of the last and the important assumption, that is mean variance framework assumes that the data is normally distributed. Mean variance framework assume that the data is normally distributed, but in case data is not normally distributed, then we cannot use the mean variance framework and it will become unreliable, because that particular model is assuming that the data follows normal distribution. But if the data is not following the normal distribution and still you are using the mean variance framework, then your outcome will become unreliable. Clear? Assume, think like this is your normal distribution, this is not actually a normal distribution. Okay, this is your normal distribution, but in reality if I'll talk about the returns, they are somewhat like this. Okay, first of all they have higher tails, heavy tails. Okay, we call them as fat tails. Clear? They have fat tails, as well as they have high peak, as compared to the normal distribution, though the mean of both the distribution is same, but the problem is of fat tails, and peakedness. Clear? And our data, if it is positively skewed, if our data is suppose positively skewed, means maximum values lying towards the left, lies towards the left. Or what if I am drawing a negatively skewed data, means even there are values which are very far away, such as negative 20%. Okay, it still have some probability, means there is some probability that even you can suffer the loss of 20% in a single day. Clear? So it is very important to shift from the normal distribution, because the normal distribution give very low probability to the tails. But in the tails if there are data, so you need to consider some different models other than the variance framework. Why? Because my distribution is not normal distribution, it is actually having skewness, and it's actually having excess kurtosis, which is not equals to 0. Clear? My data have skewness, as well as my data's excess kurtosis is not equals to 0. It can be positive or it can be negative. So I cannot use the mean variance framework. Clear? So this is needed for the part 1, that is our mean variance framework. Clear? So we have successfully completed this portion. Now let us jump to the next section. Okay, so let us now begin with our coherent risk measure. Okay, there are 4 properties and we have to study those 4 properties. Now, for any risk measure to be qualified as a logical as well as consistent, it need to satisfy 4 properties. Okay, and if a model can satisfy 4 properties, we can say that the model is a coherent risk measure. Now, what are those 4 properties? One is the monotonicity, then subadditivity, positive homogeneity, and the translation invariance. So let us understand the meaning of each and every properties, starting from the monotonicity. What does this mean? Suppose you have two asset A and asset B. Asset A and asset B. Now you have invested your $100. In both the asset, in asset A as well as in asset B. Now you are going to get the payoff of $110 from both the asset. From both the asset. Means my payoff is same. First of all, let us assume this, that payoff is same, but this is giving you in the period of 2 years, and this is giving you in the period of 1 year. Assuming that the return, the payoff from both the asset is same. Now if you'll find out the expected return or the return in terms of percentage. Okay, this one is giving you 5%, this one is giving you 5%. I have taken the simple interest rate. Okay, and this one is giving you 10%, this one is giving you 10%. So can you say one thing, that the asset B is giving me the more return, asset B is giving me the more return per year? Now wherever you are getting the payoff earlier, wherever you are getting the payoff earlier is considered to be as the safe, because here you are getting your money in 1 year and here you are getting your money in 2 years. So means you are sticking your money somewhere for the longer period of time, that is considered to be the risky. If I'll give you example, you will understand in a better way. It's you and you have given money to two friends, Mr. A and Mr. B. You have given him $100 and you also have given him $100, and they are going to return you $110. So means you are going to get $110 as well as $110. Now Mr. B is paying you within 1 year and Mr. A is paying you in 2 years. Now there can be the possibility that right now Mr. A have the good credibility, have good investment. Okay, means even if anything go wrong, he can pay off from his asset. Clear? This is the current scenario, but who knows that over the period of 2 years what will happen to his position, what will happen to his assets. Might be he can go bankrupt over the longer period of time. So this one is considered to be the safest haven and this one is considered to be the risky. Okay, when I am comparing these two. Clear? So wherever you are getting your money earlier, that is considered to be as the safe. Now they are using one statement, for the monotonicity. Okay, I will rub this portion because this is just for the purpose of explanation. Now what statement they are saying? They are saying that if you have a portfolio and where you are getting the higher expected return, there is a portfolio A and portfolio B. So portfolio B is having the greater expected return, will likely have lesser risk, This is the meaning of monotonicity, means higher return and lower risk. Clear? Higher return and lower risk. So you can present it like this, that return of B is greater than return of A. Return of B is greater than return of A, or you can say it can be equal. Return of B is greater than return of A. And when it comes to risk, let us assume it by sigma. So risk of asset B is less than the risk of asset A. The risk of asset B is less than or equal to the risk of asset A. Risk cannot be greater for asset B. Risk cannot be greater for asset B. This is the simple meaning of monotonicity. Clear? Now let us approach the sub-additivity. Now this is based on the concept of benefit of diversification. Now what is the meaning of benefit of diversification? If you have one asset A, and the risk is of $20, you have asset B, the risk is of $30, and the asset C having the risk of $50. Clear? This is their individual risk. But when I make the portfolio of A, B and C, the risk would have been less than or equal to 100, but risk cannot be greater than 100. The risk cannot be greater than 100. This is the meaning of sub-additivity. Now you can present it like this, that the risk of A plus B plus C, okay, this is the portfolio, will always be less than the risk of A plus risk of B plus risk of C. Clear? This is the simple meaning of sub-additivity. Clear? let us move to our third point, that is positive homogeneity. Now, what is the meaning of positive homogeneity? In simple terms is that if you will increase the size of your portfolio, it will increase the risk of your portfolio. It will increase the risk of your portfolio. Try to understand what I am trying to say here. You have invested your $1,000 in asset A, B and C. Okay, this is your portfolio of A, B and C. Now the risk of A, B and C is say $100. Risk of A, B and C is of $100. Now you have increased your investment, means now your asset is of portfolio value is of $2,000. So in this case the risk of A, B and C will become $200. Now your risk is actually increased from $100 to $200. Clear? Simply here you can see, if you have increased the size of your portfolio, the risk will increase automatically, because see, these three are not changing. What changing? There is a change in only in the amount of investment. So if you will increase, there is an absolute increase in the amount of the investment. So this is the real example. Okay, so positive homogeneity is a very simple and logical. Now translation invariance means actually is that cash will decrease your risk. Cash will decrease risk. I will give you example and you will understand it perfectly. Here I am writing it, translation invariance. Suppose you have the portfolio of $1,000. This is the value of your portfolio. Clear? Portfolio. And you have the risk of $100. But now suppose you sold the shares. Now suppose you sold the shares of say $200. Now the value of your portfolio is actually $800. Now this $200 is the cash in your hand. This $200 is actually the cash in your hand. Clear? Now proportionately your risk will also get reduced. Because see, you have now the portfolio of $800, which is the risky portion in your asset. Now $200, which is cash, is not contributing anything towards the risk. So if I'll talk about the risk of my portfolio is actually dependent upon the kind of assets I have in my portfolio. If I have 100% cash, means what? My risk is 0. If I have invested 100% in bonds, risk is lowest. If I have invested 100% in hedge funds, risk will be highest. So means the kind of investment do I have in my portfolio will tell about the risk of my portfolio. Okay, so